Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, wait, hold on. I have music going on here. I need to turn off my Apple Music or something. What is going on?
All right. How's it going, everyone?
All right, cool. Hi.
Yep.
Hello. I'm eating chips,
Hello.
sorry.
I'm folding laundry, but happy to be here.
Okay, let me get some water.
No one needs to see that.
Yeah, you guys probably don't want to know what brands I wear. You'd be disgusted.
Well,
Who is this? Roche Hockham? Who's that?
I don't. I'm not sure. But anyway, we are here to talk about what the fuck is going on. Not the Yanko post, but the fucking comments. Um, and I figured it would be best that a group of us would jump on here and pose that question. What the f? So I want to have T kind of get started because the post came from you and you've been kind of leading um, this in the community. Um, and then the trolls happened.
Then you said the tropes or the troll?
The trolls.
Ah, okay. Um, well, all right, just to start, and I want to be very transparent. So I prepared this link. This link has the actual report from the Design Council here. Okay. So everyone, you guys can take the time to just check out this PDF, okay? Because what I put in that carousel is literally verbatim, okay, from this report. Okay, so there was no doctoring. The only new, thing I put was probably the first page because it was shocking. This was a very shocking statistic that I think for many of us in the design industry, we have observed, and for a lot of females, a lot of women, we have felt and known to be true. However, there hasn't been much done in terms of studies for the actual stats in the US. And when I saw this come out of the UK, I think it's a good indicator because they're also a very design forward, developed, first world country, that it very much reflected my experience and many experiences of other women. So I wanted to put that out there so people are aware. And also, I think most importantly, for a lot of female designers who think that they're crazy, they can't quite understand why can't they get hired? Why can't they get their foot in the door? Why are they not a cultural fit? Which is such a prevalent excuse that you get for not getting hired. And so these are facts. And so I'm just putting it out there so people know what's going on and we can do something about it.
Yeah. When I saw the Yanko post, um, the comments for a good 2 hours, you saw everyone that was commenting their true colors come out. And for a good 2 hours, those comments were kind of just by themselves, like no one responded. And then after
I
that,
was asleep because it was 7:30 a.m. in the West Coast.
yeah, there was a wave of support that then followed by designers and design leaders and allies, which was amazing to see all that kind of happen. There was a big response. So that means you're doing something good.
Yeah, and I also want to specifically highlight one very, very important thing about the study here. Okay, because one of the things I remember bringing up this in the past, and I remember having an engineer say this to me, and I can't remember where. I don't want to call anybody out, but I was saying how there are so few, female industrial designers, and they're like, well, I'm sure this is kind of like engineering. There aren't that many, engineers that are going into, mechanical engineering or electrical engineering. And I come from Georgia Tech. Okay, it is a tech bro school. I know. Okay, I'm like I think there's like one, I think the male to female ratio is like 1 to 12 or something like that. Okay, this was back in the 90s, okay? And so his argument is that there aren't that many women signing up to be engineers. Like the percentage at tech is like less than 15% or something like that. So, okay, I get that. If you're only having like a class of 15 to 20% or less, 20% being generous, of women being, signing up to even major in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, sure, understandably, you're going to have a much less pool of applicants to choose from when you're hiring, okay? However, this stat is clearly in the face of that. The students that are studying design in all the top design schools, and I did my own informal research of looking at the top 5 design schools in the US, and overwhelmingly, those population statistics show that it is definitely 50%, if not more, skewed female, okay? And that has been going on for a while. So if that's the case, and you have an industry that's 95% male or 78% male, something is happening in the hiring process. That is the part I think we need to call attention to.
So I think a lot of that has to do with the people in positions of hiring, the hiring managers, the majority of them are male designers who are just hiring, male designers from their university or etc. And
yeah, I mean, I think there's hiring. I think there's misunderstanding of what industrial design is, especially in the US. Because when you have smaller companies, they don't quite understand even what is industrial design. And so they pick an applicant who's mainly an engineer, okay? Or they think industrial designers have to be an engineer as well, okay? And I am not an engineer by any means. I don't want anything I engineered, okay? I know my shortcomings, okay? But what happens is that when there are companies that are unduly burdening the industrial designer the role of an engineer, having them to be a designer and an engineer at the same time, yeah, you're going to cut out a lot of women. Just someone are they're not but a lot of men are also mechanically competent, but that's not what we went to school for, and so I think that is part of it. The growth culture fit. And so many women, I think you can see in the comments, young designers have said, yeah, that's what they told me, that I wasn't a cultural fit. Well, yeah. How are you going to be a cultural fit on a team of guys? Like, you're a young female designer, and like, well, yeah, so it's like you're setting up to, you're not exactly being set up for success. So yeah, so those are just, a few things I think that has prevented. And also, this is something that I've personally experienced, is that when I started industrial design, at some point, I had a manager, design manager. Starting out, my design chops were not good. We're all learning. And he was like, well, since this doesn't seem to be your strong suit, maybe you should think about color and materials, or maybe you should go into research. Like, this was posed to me as a very young designer. And can you imagine that? And when I articulate this to other women, they were like, yeah, that happened to me too. And so can you understand now that there are so many women maybe who've gotten their foot in the door, but that are now detoured into something else, research and design and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that is something that's happened to me. But I was like, no, fuck no. I want to be a designer, and, stay the course. But yeah, these are just a few just personal experiences, and yeah, such that I can bring up.
yeah, if you're in this webinar, I would love to hear from you. Come forward, share your experiences, share any thoughts about that post that really has been the center of today's talk. Right, it's from 7 a.m. to up until now. Those comments are still going.
And Robert Brunner, Yves Behar have all lent their voices to this, because, they are the exceptions as far as design firms that, have women in management or in leadership positions, but what a lot of people don't realize is that they are exceptions. They are not the rule, you know, and we need more men in leadership positions in
Yeah, I mean,
design firms.
it's getting better. When I was when I was in San Francisco, even in San Francisco, there weren't very many female design leaders that I at least was aware of, and maybe that's my own blindness coming into play. But Shujan Bertrand was one of the ones that was tremendously influential to me, motivational, and I aspired to be like her, you know, and that was really cool. And you know, with regards to the post, yeah, I saw that and I kind of had this what the fuck moment, like, is this real? Is this reality? But I think it's part of the problem with just these internet forums where you can hide behind a certain degree of anonymity. At one point I was like, okay, I'm gonna research all these motherfuckers and see if I can find out who they are and like out them, but I backed off of that idea a bit. I think at the same time it's good to, this may sound a bit controversial, but allow people to just out themselves. I'm glad people are outing themselves.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
I don't want to work. I don't want to work with or associate with those people, and I'll be quick to call it out.
Yeah,
like, okay, you're an asshole. Cool.
I'm like,
I know who you are.
thank
I know where
you.
It's a lot like this last year, just where I've seen people I thought were friends, you know, not stand up for certain things. I'm just like, okay, cool. I know where you're at. Got it.
Yeah, no, I cannot emphasize how this topic, just like racism, we have not been able to talk about this for so many years. The plight of people of color, the plight of women, you know, getting the vote, getting rights, those things have always kind of come together in a way, you know, and I've felt this for a very, very long time. And this is the only time in my career, now that I'm 40 years old, that I feel like I can actually put this out there and call people out and point it out and try to have a conversation with someone about it. Because before that, people didn't want to talk about it. They wanted to sweep it under the rug like it didn't exist, like racism.
I also just want to say I'm happy to speak up, but I want to hear from the other perspective, like the people who've lived through these experiences, because I don't feel like it's my forum or place to dominate the conversation as a man. I'll just say I was disgusted by what I saw and shocked and horrified. And as soon as I saw it, we were talking about it in, you know, Hector and I and a few other friends, and just like, can you believe this shit? What's happening? I thought we were past. And maybe again, that speaks to my own lack of insight and naivety, in the sense that, you know, there's empathy and sympathy, and in some ways I can sympathize with your lived reality, T, and others that are here, but and I hope that this presents a chance for us to kind of hear some stories and hear some experiences from you guys. Like, I don't want to dominate this. I've said what I want to say, but yeah, I'll yield the rest of the time, I guess, to.
No, I mean, it's yeah, please, like, I can go on and on, and I think one of the things about being able to speak about this topic of sexism is that when you bring it up and you tell it to your friends or whatever, just like, you know, when you don't know the facts, you're just expressing, like, you know, you don't realize that this is a much deeper systemic thing. And I had to show these stats because it shows that this is a deeper systemic thing. It's not just a one-off experience that you've had or this. It's that how can more than 50% of the students are female, and yet the ones who are getting hired are mainly men. And in the UK, it's 95% men in the industrial design. Okay, so that is the problem here, is that, you know, systemically, there's something's got to change, and we have to re-examine how we think about hiring. Yeah.
I wanted to say something. So, I mean, I have done 3 internships now as a student. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Monica Robinson. And, you know, I've had my own personal experiences, and I know this is a huge conversation. As far as sexism goes, it's something that I've been incredibly aware of due to my experiences. But one thing that I have as a question for you guys is, are there solutions that you guys have seen or things that are working to help this problem or to kind of help women or people of color who are experiencing discrimination to get these jobs? Or what is the solution? Do we have any ideas?
Well, I mean, reaching out to people who can be your allies. Like I actually personally contacted Robert Broner. I actually personally contacted East Behar and be like, hey, look what's going on. And they're like, oh my God. And then they, 100% jumped in. So it's making people aware of what's going on. And also at the same time, it's not always on you, because you're not the one in power, and you have, Monica, you have like had some amazing internships. And what's so sad is that like your internship experience are very much similar to mine, and also my peers who she's like 70 something years old, and in the 80s she was also the only female on the team of guys, and I've had this experience. So that means since the 80s, this hasn't changed much. And so it is genuinely like people in positions of power take a deep look at how they are hiring and how can they change those biases.
So that's something that I definitely 100% agree with you, and also thank you. I really appreciate that post, and I really appreciate you like bringing people into the conversation. But there's always going to be teams like Huge, for instance, that is total bro culture, and they're like they don't have any intention of changing. And as long as there are teams like that, then there's going to be exclusion of like women and potentially people of color in those situations. So it's like, how do we bring the conversation to them, or what motivates those kinds of companies to also be involved in this conversation and want to hire women and people of color or minorities or people who are discriminated against?
I mean, there's always, I think because the millennials, because of social media, we have come to a point where people who are doing bad and continue to do bad, they're not going to be in business very long. This is my feeling, okay, is that we are now more conscientious as consumers and who we put our money with, who we support, and I think eventually those bad players will just out themselves and people will know,
No more hiding.
Yeah.
I would I know them personally. I worked with them, and I don't disagree with Monica, but at the same time I've also seen Astro change in the sense that they were probably firmly in that bro category, and now are a bit more diverse. I think there's still work to be done there potentially, but I wouldn't necessarily be so definitive, but still be optimistic, at least knowing who they are. I know these people. I'll still create some room for the potential for change there.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful for that.
I think that one thing that's really interesting to me is like this is like widely known in the academic fields. Like people do master's degrees and dissertations on this kind of stuff all the time, and the information is widely available, but for whatever reason it doesn't seem to translate to the industry. Like there doesn't seem to be the translation. I think that's a lot of in line with the statistics of 63% of women in academia are doing industrial design, but then 95% are male in the industry. So I'm just curious, like that's something that I've personally been trying to answer as a question for like me going into the field. I'm going to graduate this year in April, and I'm just wondering like, like what do I want out of my career, and am I going to continue to pursue academia, but how does my dissertation and my master's degree end up affecting the industry if nobody's actually listening to these people who are doing the research?
I go back a little bit to what I said, that change happens, and when you have cultures that are at scale, that change is often very slow. I've seen a lot of change in my career, and I'm optimistic that things will change and be accelerated. Like T said, you can't hide anymore. We're in this age of information saturation, and it's really hard for people to put on a front. Information travels fast, things get exposed. At the same time, I would say, you know, how do I put this? I had a thought here I was gonna say. Just that I'm optimistic that things will change. Oh, there was an interesting comment on the thread going back to the Yanko post, and Yanko was clapping back, I guess. These are facts, not abstract art, and I agree. That these are real things, and yeah, we have to deal with them. A system that incentivizes those who benefit from it is going to be very slow to change. I can tell you that from my
Yeah,
perspective as a minority
absolutely.
and as a black person. Like it's going to be very hard to change. That's just reality, but it will change. So I think we just have to
I
speak up like we are now, show up, show off, speak up. And I
Mhm.
think this is a great opportunity for us to do that.
I think also, what you do like with your master's degree, and with that information, you know, it may feel disheartening that it seems like it's not going to have much impact because the world's not listening. Um, the world also has very short attention span. Okay, and what I would do is I would even challenge you a bit to even find clever ways of get your information out there. You know, one of the things, this research from Design Council has been there for a while. It's been there since 2008. Okay. And it wasn't until I turned it into a carousel that like, okay, then suddenly we have, within our industry, it's like, whoa, what the fuck? And so it's also about how you communicate that information and what you do with that. So yeah, it's not 100%, yours to own, but if you want to have impact, it's at the same time, I'm optimistic people will change, but you also have to get clever ways of getting through to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
take.
and I totally agree with that. And I think it's really phenomenal to see how Yanko Design shared your post, because I was like following that post from the beginning when you originally posted it. But to see how much more global impact they had and how much more that brought in people to the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that was it was really phenomenal to see how much more impact there was just because of the platform on which that information was being spread. So like very much from the bottom of my heart, like I respect the shit out of you, T, and I think
Thanks.
it's people like you who are really paving the way for the rest of us to be able to have more opportunity. So thank you for that.
I'm gonna piggyback on your comment, Monica, about what you're about to graduate. You're considering your impact on industry and moving ahead, and then Danielle in the comments of our chat here said, I find it difficult to speak up when most of the people in leadership positions for my company are white male. And I'm not I don't identify with the women here in the chat, but I can say that I've felt that fear because unfortunately we live in this system that incentivizes its development and existence on the fear of people, like straight up real talk.
Yep.
They're hoping that you don't speak up. They're hoping that you don't share your experiences. They're hoping that these posts go away. Like this is real talk. And it hit me this year. I'm just like, oh shit, they don't want people that are disenfranchised or pushed into the corners or unheard to actually say what we experience, because then we can profit. Then we could keep, feeding this fucking machine without
they can keep the
any
status
hesitation.
quo.
Yeah, exactly. So I love seeing like people speak up and like show up, and that's my whole thing now. Is like, be loud, be heard. You have thoughts that are valuable. Don't doubt yourself. Danielle, Monica, everyone here who may feel that fear, and it maybe it's coming from a place of privilege where I've worked hard in my career and I have resources and means to be able to speak up, and I'm not as worried about the consequences. But if you find an opportunity to speak up, just do it. There are people who love you and will back you up.
Yeah, and I would really very much want to add to that. I want to say, look, speaking up is scary. Okay, it is scary. I'm not sugarcoating it. It really is scary. Okay, and speaking up is an exercise in flexing that muscle to stand up for yourself. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and first few times when you speak up, your voice is really going to shake. Okay, it's going to be scary. But once if you have truth on your side and you are consistent, people will eventually see. Okay, and that's one of the things that I want to put myself out there, because I've been able to to be perfectly honest, I did not want to work in a corporation where I knew from day one there is a massive glass ceiling that I would never be able to even touch, okay, much less shatter, okay? And that's one of the reasons why I think myself and so many women, also like Shujan, that Spencer mentioned, have ventured out to create their own businesses, start their own firms, you know? And I think that is one of the ways that we've had to just kind of, it's like, fuck, you're not going to invite us into the boys club. Fuck it, we'll make our own damn girls club, you know? And that is why I feel so empowered to speak up, because I don't give a shit if anybody blacklists me, because I'm not trying to apply to huge or whatever, you know, blah, 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 you know? And I just want to speak up for what's right. And so many people who are privileged, such as Spencer and myself, who has built our own companies, who we feel like we're not like above, but we're just not fearful of that blacklist issue, which I know is very real. So many young designers have told me that, like, they're afraid to say this because they don't want to be blacklisted, or they, you know, and I get it, you know. But it's definitely something you practice, and I hope that for a lot of women who spoke out and commented and clapped back in the feed, that is their first taste of this is what that feels like when you stand up for yourself, you know. And I feel like I can go on and be, but there's going to be backlash. Okay, one of my first immediate thought right after I posted this, I'm like, fuck, I'm going to start getting death threats. I'm going to start getting like nasty ass. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. Any woman that speaks up, any woman that, you know, has a strong opinion, I immediately get fearful. You know, just like when a woman walks down the street and gets catcalled, you know, they're like, hey baby, and you're like, fuck you, and you're like, oh shit, it's gonna kill me, you know. I mean, seriously, that is what happens. But I have had social media mobs on me, okay, and I always feel like after I survive that, I'm in the big leagues now, and it's okay, you know. They're over there, you're over here. Just do the best you can to navigate and stick to the truth.
Yeah, one thing I would like to mention is that, like, this is obviously something that's been on the forefront of my mind pretty much since I started interning at places and had my first experience. But there is a PDF that I uploaded to my website on the book Rebel Talent by Francesca Gino that's all about, I guess, this particular topic that we're talking about. And I've just uploaded it, scanned pages of the book. And if anyone wants to read more about this, it's free to look at. So links in my bio on Instagram if people want to know more.
I cannot tell you enough. So I've had the privilege of connecting with Caroline Criado Perez, okay? One of the reasons I feel like this pandemic has really changed me as a designer is that I have had time to really focus on and just kind of rethink about what is my voice in the social media world? What do I even care to be on social media? Do you know what I mean? And when I read this book, like, it gave me some facts that all of us have known since the moment we were born. You know, we're like, why is it that I can't reach my cabinet? Why is it that, like, I'm like looking in the bathroom mirror, the mirror starts here, you know? Like, there's so many things that are like microaggressions in our lives that this book gives you the facts and the data that basically the world wasn't designed for women. There is a massive gap of the needs of women and what is actually being designed and put out there. And that includes really important things like medicine. So much of clinical trials are only 100% tested on men first before they even go to the next phase. So can you imagine how much life-saving medicine women have missed out on just because it didn't work for men? You know, because the way that this is the reason why I keep criticizing universal design is that the concept of universal design works in theory, but it doesn't work when in reality, universal design, the default human is that of a male, okay, is that of a man. And women are not considered human. You know, when we think of a just generic human, we think it's a male. And that's how we've designed the world, okay? And so this to me, it's made me more, I don't know, fueled to share some of these facts and get this book out there so more people are more aware of yeah, we want to support women and we want to support women, but this book gives you facts, real research, like crash test dummies. They've been asking for female crash test dummies since the 60s. And the first one wasn't even implemented until 2011. Okay, they tried it earlier, but then the crash test ratings went down. So then they were like, "Oh shit," let's just keep it the status quo. I mean, anyway, you can just go on and on, but but if you want to help women, this book I think is really helpful because you can start to find places where you can actually be of impact. And this is the reason why it's important to vocalize these things and get people to talk about these things.
Yeah, it's one thing that's really interesting to me is it's like a lot of women that I know have read those books or know this information, right? But it's the men who really need to know this information because men can speak to men who don't want to listen to women, but women can't speak to men who don't want to listen to women. And so I think it's really cool that you're bringing that up and spreading awareness of these books. But it's really up to the men in our lives that are in those positions of authority to be influencing other men so that they are wanting to join the conversation and learn about these things and understand
Absolutely.
that there are extreme gaps in the whole entire system.
Yeah.
And also the other part of this is like, this is information that's being spread on Instagram, but there's so many people who are not involved in the Instagram community, who are still in the industrial design community. They're not seeing this information or don't have any awareness around any of this conversation. It's like, how do we get to them? How do we talk to them? So it is really up to like everyone to be talking about this and having these conversations at work and really bringing this up as like something that is important to everyone, not just the women, but also helps men and helps the GDP. And there's so many different reasons why equality and diversity actually make teams make better decisions in general.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing I just want to be really, really clear is that I am not saying, oh, us women, we have all the answers. No, the world is fucked up, okay? And it's gonna take both men and women to work on those things together, okay? That's all I'm saying. And that is the best shot in hell that we're gonna have in solving some really important problems. Is when we have both of our sexes, both genders, and more, looking at these things together. And not just like, I'm not saying it's all women or all men. I mean, because obviously we've seen what happens when it's all men.
Yeah, one of the most important things, designers talk about empathy and how important this is and research and understanding people. And we have a comment here. One aspect which shocked me was some of the misogynistic comments come from industrial designers who are supposed to be empathetic. That isn't something which I expected. Downright shocked. And I agree. I think one of the most important skills I've learned in my career is, and career, but also personal life, is seek to understand before being understood. As designers, we're trying to shove ideas out there and like pitch things, and do we actually take a minute to just pause and listen? And the comments to me read as someone who saw the report, or maybe it was the numbers. They didn't take time to ask, hey, are there any female designers out there who this resonates with? Tell us about your experiences. I think that's where the productive conversation happens. Seek to understand before being understood.
Yeah. Do you think it's also that this challenges the status quo and the comfort that they've been sitting in?
Oh, of course. Yeah. It's like I said, the system, any like systems, businesses, religions, organizations, whatever, are incentivized to support the existence of the organization. So those who benefit from the existence of the system are going to be conditionally or contextually myopic and blind rather, to those problems because they don't experience those things. So of course it's hard when someone challenges your perception. You're like, oh wow, really? Is that this way? For me, it's not a problem. I never had a problem getting a job. What are you talking about? So
but that doesn't mean right, but you don't think of it like, oh, it doesn't exist, and that is that kind of the core issue here.
I don't, because I've worked through a lot of my own issues. I mean, I'm not gonna show up here and be like, yeah, I'm perfect. No, absolutely, there's moments in my life where I've been sexist, I've been misogynistic, I have benefited from systems as a cisgendered Black male, even within my community, where I have to pause now and take a look and go, oh shit, huh?
Yeah.
Was that, and I think about those moments and I go, okay, when you know better, do better, right? where, at least for me as a designer, that's another core quality and belief I have, is that when you know better, do better. When you see an opportunity to improve, embrace it, run with it. And I think that's just a part of being a good or worthy designer, if you will. That's from Maya Angelou, by the way. I don't want to take credit for that. When you know better, do better.
I think I'd love to talk to that just for a second. I don't want to take up too much space, but I think kind of going back to what Danielle said and what you were saying, Spencer, just, being in a position as a designer, especially where you have like the privileges, and I can speak to that as a cis white male who is blonde haired and blue eyed and of relatively average height. But just understanding that the world isn't designed for everyone, and then taking that and saying, well, my job as a designer is to advocate for the people who need to be designed for and to involve them in the process. And so I think, like what Rashawn said, it's so ridiculous that some people who are designers are not doing that. It just goes against everything in your head, because that's what I see personally, like as my job as a designer. It's not just to make things, it's to like help people and to involve people in helping themselves.
Yeah, and there are also, in addition to being advocates, I would say there are these microaggressions that happen in the office. Like, oh, it's time for team lunch. Oh, let's look at the female designer, have her take all of our orders. Okay, that happens. Or in a team brainstorming session, hey, let's get out all the markers, all the Post-its, all the highlighters. And then once time, once over, everybody leaves and they leave the cleanup to ladies. Like, that is shit I've seen over and over, and I've been in that position, And so these are also some things that we can, if like female designers be like, hey, I'm not your mom. She doesn't work here. Can I get some help here? Like there are little things that you can do. Just be like, hey, why is this my job? Okay. And next time maybe throw that, coffee order over to the young dude intern, next to you. Thank you.
So I I would love to hear about because a lot of us really went on the comment section and just started really supporting and standing up to a lot of these comments. I'd love to hear about those who didn't, and they kind of stand on the sidelines and they're just like, they could have done this better. Or maybe if the post was more about taking action, then the trolls wouldn't have happened. And that attitude right there also is just as bad as these negative comments.
It's like, if you're complacent, you're also part of the problem.
Yeah, I'll say, Hector, I think by the time I saw it, I was at a place where I felt like commenting on it was kind of adding to something. And so instead I decided it would be better to share it and show it to other people rather than, add to something that a bunch of people have already commented on and a bunch of people have said this is wrong, kind of showing that they're sharing that with other people so that it spreads that information more, I think was just more purposeful at that point. But
no, I mean, anything helps.
I'd like to say that those who are sharing the post and showing their support are contributing. They're showing themselves as a beacon, as allyship. And those who are on this call and who are watching, who have done that, I appreciate you and I thank you for that, because it's hard navigating the design community when you don't know who believes what. And I think this Yanko post really did unveil, it's like the end of a Scooby-Doo episode, who's who and like who's actually the culprit. But I think at the end of the day, this really did bring some unity to the community. And I don't know, it's eye-opening and definitely is starting a stir. So it's great. Even though there's some awful misogynistic comments, there's some growth that's coming from this.
Yeah, and fighting the patriarchy is hard. It's like 24/7.
I will say though that those comments have been more motivating to me in wanting to outperform those men than anything else this year. So thank you for making that post so that we can
Fuck
have
yeah.
real anger as
Yeah.
motivation to do better.
And also, I think one of the things that's really helpful amongst women is that I've been in situations where I felt like I encourage all the women to kind of be listening to your inner self when something happens in the office. It just doesn't seem right, and then you just cannot quite put your finger on it, and or talk to somebody about it. DM me. I mean, it's been helpful to me to be able to talk to either male allies or other women who are older than me, and they help me to articulate some things that I wasn't at the time able to put into words, and help me form the words to stand up for myself. And so I just want you guys all to also just be vigilant and pay attention to how you feel, because what you feel matter, and and by talking through it with others could be helpful.
There's 25 people on this webinar. There's no way that you came on here just to listen. It'd be great if you
Please vent.
share your thoughts.
I will mute myself.
Hi, I guess I just want to talk about what you had said about like people who hadn't commented. I ended up commenting, and that's the first time I've ever done that on anything like this. And it's because like I had been really afraid of doing that kind of thing before. Like I had been afraid, like what you said, T, that a mob would come after me and like people would, I don't know, like find my email or like find more of my personal information. I was really afraid of that. And so, but today I just decided, because of like the presence of people like T in this community, and I know great people like who are also very against this kind of these kinds of people. So because of that, I felt like I had the courage to say something, and I think it was like very worth it. I'm really glad I said something, because it's something that's like been sort of smoldering in me for a long time. And so yeah, I just wanted to say that like definitely seeing other people who say their piece inspires you.
Yeah, and I want to say this is the reason why, for example, the Me Too movement was so powerful, is that when we let each other know that we're not alone, that is how we can become stronger and support each other, and people are more willing to come forward. That's why those movements are what they are, and this is not the same thing, but it's about strength in numbers and being courageous enough to speak your truth, and speak out when something is wrong. So thank you for doing that.
Hey, this is Danielle. I was debating whether I would turn my audio on. I don't know if you can tell, but my voice is trembling. I'm usually not like this, but I just had a really emotional day overall, and just seeing the comments really upset me. I was debating, I was actually talking to Tiffany earlier, like before this call. I was gonna wait until tomorrow to repost like about this conversation, and my heart is beating so fast. I'm just really, really upset. Still like seeing these comments, and I think, yeah, like some people said in the chat, it's crazy to know. Well, it's good to kind of have this this, I don't know, the space to kind of examine like what kind of designers are out there, and or just knowing that the fact that they exist is really frustrating to me. But I really want to say thank you, T, for speaking up. Like I know this is not your first time speaking up, and I know you're really involved in the Women in Design organization from the IDSA, and I personally want to get more involved next year. So I definitely want to reach out to you next year to see how I can contribute more, because I think I mentioned it in the chat. I personally feel more comfortable speaking up, like on my Instagram or just on my social platforms, other than within my company. It's just so ironic to me that I don't know, sometimes I have this fear of just like speaking up within my own organization. But I think you were right about, you know, being smart about like having a strategy of approaching people and helping them understand our like where we're coming from, our perspectives, instead of just, I think the reason why I'm holding off to repost about this till tomorrow is because sometimes I come off really frustrated, just sounding really frustrated, and I don't know if that's the best way to go about it. So yeah, I think definitely I have the book Invisible Women. I just haven't started reading it, but it's on my list, and I think I actually might switch out one of the books I'm reading now to get onto it. So thank you for that recommendation, and yeah, just really grateful for this chat overall. Yeah, I'm still trembling, but
Don't be. Oh, I feel you, girl. I feel you. I want to give you a big virtual hug, because I know how it feels to speak out for the very first time, or when you're starting out. And I think your assessment about not speaking up within your company, that is also very smart. That is not a cowardly thing or whatever. Don't feel like that is not good, because I think you intuitively know what's a safe space and what is not. Okay, and there are many companies that it doesn't make sense to even bother speaking up because nobody's going to hear you. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to go. I mean, if they even write it down, it may go into a file in HR, or if that. So it's okay. If I was employed in a in one of those traditional American conglomerate, corporations, I probably would not be speaking up because I would be terrified of ramifications, because I would think that, I wouldn't be hireable, but I believe that this is changing. And I want to be on the right side of history. And plus, if you do speak up and you get fired, then you are actually opening up a new door for yourself. I mean, no, I'm not saying for you to do that. I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm just saying that, you know what is right for you, and just do that. But the way I am is I just tend to think that, look, if I'm going to speak my truth and people are going to hate me for it, well, they're not my friends to begin with. And that's okay,
Well, spoiler alert, I am thinking about leaving my job. So I think that was a good sign when I first noticed that I just don't feel comfortable speaking up, like, because I think part of the reason is just my company is gigantic, and I also think the overall value they have is not aligned with mine, which I'm just finding out. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate this conversation.
Let's stay in touch. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, of course.
I do have to say, I don't understand some of the comments where they say women aren't able to make sacrifices like work 60 hours a week, because every female designer I know work almost as much, if not more than that. I really do question, like, who and what and how are they getting these opinions of women, especially if they're present in their circles, and is it just that they're blindsided to it? It's just a bubble that they seem to be living in. So, I mean, that's what astounded me about the post. It's comment after comment about just inaccuracies about what it is like working as a female designer.
Yeah, I'll just throw down and speak on that. And I'm kind of in a I don't give a fuck mood. So growing up, I grew up in a very conservative mindset, and I grew up in a very religious context that was conservative. And interestingly enough, seeing these comments today took me decades back, where I was like, oh yeah, that's how the group I associated with would think about women. That, okay, you guys aren't capable of taking on more because you're supposed to be in the kitchen, you're supposed to be the nurturer, the one who is the homemaker, right? And unfortunately, for some people, that context still exists. For some people, they're still conditioned to think in those terms and those norms. So I can understand from their point of view. I don't agree with it, but I can understand likely where that thinking is coming from. Whereas for those who never grew up in those contexts, it's hard to even fathom someone speaking in those terms. And it's reprehensible. It's absolutely reprehensible. I own that shit 100%. But I've moved on. And like I said, when you know better, do better. And I will advocate till my last breath for equal representation and equal opportunity for people, and not suppose that because what I hear, what I've learned means that is so. It's about what is right. And even as a student, maybe Monica can relate because we went to the same school, but there were times where I caught myself thinking even things like, oh, what is this going to lead to? And I hate saying it, but I have to say it because I have to own my shit and own my past. I don't believe those things anymore at all, but I can understand the context in which that thought is expressed, and it's sick, it's disgusting, but it's real. It's absolutely real. Um, and I hope for the sake of my children and for everyone moving forward, even that, and I teach my kids now everything contrary to what I was taught, because what I was taught was wrong. Um, but like I said, I own that, and I think in embracing truth, it allows us to move forward and move past and to evolve and develop into better humans.
Yeah, I want to add that the comment about how women are not doing the work, or women are not putting in their own, um, enough time and all this stuff. I want to also point out again, sorry, I just keep going back to the damn book, but in Invisible Women, she actually points out how the amount of work women do in addition to their 9 to 5, that means house chores. I mean, one of the problems is that in our society, the work that women do are not considered work. Okay. And so what happens is that the thing, and actually she pulls it, she brings that into GDP. And if you actually look at the amount of work women have to do at home and at work, and on top of compared to men, it is so much more work, but they're just not getting paid for it. Does that make sense? And she has like some stunning stats about how, there's no such thing as unpaid, as unpaid, was it as what the fuck this thing? It was like something about unpaid work. It's just women who are not paid for their work. But anyway, I can find the stat. But basically, yeah, a lot of women are doing way more work, but they're just not paid for it, or nor recognized as work. So, I mean, if you think about women who have to give birth, I mean, that is not an easy thing. Okay, your vagina is tore up. Okay, and you're healing, and they expect you to be back in the studio in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. It's like, oh my God, and some of these things and the policies around maternity leave, and it's insane, because so many men have not had to experience this firsthand.
Yeah, I can agree with you, man. I mean, when I made the shift from co-parenting to just parenting, like shit got realer than real, and I was like, holy shit, this is hard. And I have tremendous respect for those women who choose to be parents and embrace that side and still get shit done. Like, you're completely badass and amazing, because it's really, really hard.
Spencer, thanks for being very wholesome and honest about your past and owning up to it. And also pointing out that, this is not something that can just be a switch that can be turned on and off. It's something that people grow to learn. So with that being said, I think, I don't know if I want to or like how it should progress organically. But one thing that people are saying in other channels is, how can men be better allies to women? How can they make this happen? And how can we do this in a more expedited way rather than, like demanding it immediately? It's something you work towards. What methods are there and what have you experienced?
Well, if I may, I made a really, it's kind of I made a reel in my about how to survive a male dominated workplace, but also how to be a male ally. And these are very real things that do make a difference. For example, when women are talked over in meetings, help support them. Be like, oh, wait, hey, Elizabeth, were you saying something, and or just supporting them, because for some reason, because of the system, what you say can help uplift the voice of a woman, okay, or a young female designer. And so if you're in that position, please do so, okay, and give credit where credit's due. And also, like things like don't treat them like the office secretary or the office mom. Those are all little microaggressions that men can do to kind of help to fix that. And the most important thing I think for especially white men is to advocate for other women, because your voice is heard a lot more than women. So, yeah.
Well, we
I
have.
did want to say just one last thing. So it's interesting kind of, sorry, let me turn my video on. It's interesting kind of examining the scope of and the range of comments and feedback and reactions from, males who perhaps are threatened by this sort of conversation. And there's certainly an expression in certain contexts of, well, can we just be nice about this? Can we talk about actionable things, or can we talk about ways to help instead of presenting the facts? And I'm like, no, man, we got to talk about the facts. And the closest analogy I have is, this year we've seen a lot of injustices and terrible things happen to people that look like me, and it rocked me to my core, and it forced me to speak up. And unless we address the reality of situations, you cannot speak about things in generalities in pleasant ways. We have to lean into the discomfort and be like, yo, this shit is real, here's how it is. Then we can talk about maybe how we can fix it. You can't just, I think, talk about the things that should be done without talking about how it is. So I appreciate, even though it's a carousel and like you said, there was that report, I appreciate at least the ability to consume that data and have it be impactful and presented in a way that can be shared and digested and expressed, because I think it is important to look at the reality of the situation and confront that reality and challenge your own perspective and your own biases and your own benefit from the system and go, hey, maybe this is real. Don't just dismiss things.
I would love, because I reached out to Eves and I reached out to Robert Brunner, okay, because I, as a woman, I know that just my voice alone ain't gonna do too much, to be perfectly honest. I recognize the limit of my voice, okay, just because of where society is right now. And what I would love to see is more men who are at the helm of these, these organizations, create some kind of a pact, okay, that they are going to hire more women. They are going to put more women in positions of leadership, because it is a systemic thing, and that is the only way, that we can expedite that change instead of just hoping for it to change. Is for people in power making the commitment that we're going to change this shit.
Absolutely. And in the conversation of racial injustice and diversity, equity, inclusion, we've talked many times about the fact that we cannot do it alone. We need white people to use your privilege, speak up. In as much as, we need men to speak up too and call things out. That is not okay. We're all going to help clean up here. No, it is not okay for you to ask, so-and-so to do the lunch order. That's not okay. I'm going to step up and speak out. Speak up, speak out, man.
Well, we have like about 5 more minutes. If there's anyone who wants to come forward and say anything, any closing remarks, right now is the time to do it.
feel like something I want to say is that, like, a lot of women kind of probably don't even think about or realize that, like, this is happening to them because we've internalized so much misogyny our entire lives and have been like, okay, this is how it is. I certainly have had a different view of feminism in the past. Like, I didn't really understand what it was about before, and I don't know, I just wasn't like educated on it. And through more education, through more reading, I now know like just how much we are oppressed by the current system. And so yeah, I guess I wanted to say that it's going to take time, and it's like women as well are going to need to like be educated about our own circumstances, in order to
I
be
want to
able
say, no, sorry. I want to say one thing that I think that could be helpful for both men and women here. I want to give an example because I went to a birthday party of a former Stanford design professor. Okay, he was going away. He was, I think, moving to Austin. He's a very well-respected professor, and it was a going-away party. And so all these people were toasting him at his backyard, you know, and just saying nice things, all the things that he's done for them. And this one woman, lifted her glass and was like, "Scott, I just want to tell you how much you mean to me because you are the first male professor who took the time to take me seriously. You walked around the block with me talking about my ideas as if, you know, they're valid. And I know this seems so," she said something to the fact like, "I know it does not seem like a big deal to you. I mean, you probably were just thinking you were talking to me, but that is not the way how I've been treated as my entire, you know, design student and career." And she started crying, and I started crying because I was like, holy shit, I feel the same way, because it is so rare to have a man in a position of power, okay, or someone you respect, to treat you as if what you're saying is valid. So often they talk to you in a form of amusement, like, "Oh, what you're saying is kind of cute, you know, hey, you know, it's kind of a joke." Like, I've experienced all of that, okay, and I've internalized it, like you said, like, "Oh, that's just the way." No, when you finally meet a person who treats you and your ideas as valid as their own, it is so different. And I just encourage more men to listen to more women, and treat what they have to say with respect. Because honestly, that's not the way, that's not the default, that's not the respect that we're given. So. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah, T, thank you so much. Anyone else has anything else to say?
I just want to say thank you to all of the guys who are in this chat and all of the people who have like reposted T stuff and everything, especially the men, just because it's through that like I do feel empowered to talk more about it, or I do feel empowered to like speak about it, because it's like, okay, it's not just the women who are fighting for this. It's having the allyship of other guys who are taking note and contributing to the conversation as well that makes me feel a lot safer in the community. So I appreciate all of you a lot, and I'm really glad to have joined this Zoom call. Thank you so much, Hector and Spencer and T, for putting this on.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica. I'm trying to delay ending this call because I had someone at Yanko was going to jump on. Since it would be great to hear their perspective as they posted this, and they were kind of doing damage control. Well, not really damage control. They were mostly clapping back, right?
I know. I was shocked because so many. I mean, I don't know. I mean, would Core 77 have done this? I don't know. You know, but it is absolutely just it just feels so good to see, you know, that a publication with that almost 1 million, you know, reach that just ain't gonna have it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's.
Yeah, it's easier to ignore the comments and turn them, you know, as a.
I kind of like that they took the Seth Rogen approach when many of the protests were happening, and you know, we had Rayshard Brooks and we had George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. He was just like, "Fuck off, unfollow me," and I was just like, "This is amazing, thank you, Seth."
Yeah, so Yanko straight up said that.
Yeah, I know. It's been good. They were just like, "Unfollow me, I don't care, unfollow." And frankly, I mean, kind of alluding back to the point earlier, you know, this tension between fear of how people might perceive you and standing up for what you believe in. Like, I think with how saturated we are with information and connected, it's important to make sure you're on the right side of history. Meaning being what's the word? A person with integrity. Okay. So if you know something's wrong, you call it out, you speak up, and I have no tolerance for, you know, people who are going to support sexism or racism or misogyny or intolerance of things that I perceive to be at least acceptable, as long as they do no harm to others. I'm totally willing to create space for that. So yes, I love that they showed up, and I hope they show up on the call here. That would be great.
Yeah, I want to echo. I also remembered Yanko Design. Wait, is it Yanko or is it just Yanko or Yanko Design? I don't know why, I can't remember. But they also reposted. I think I did a video back in June or July when I don't know if anyone is aware about this, but ICE announced this really crazy policy about, you know, like the international students in the US for this fall semester or something, they had to take at least one in-person class. And that was ridiculous because one, we were in the middle of a pandemic, and I've been through this as an international student and now as a foreign worker. It's really complicated to maintain your visa status, and pretty much that policy leaves the students only two options: one, to risk their life to take an in-person class, or go back to their home country. So yeah, and then I think they use their platform as well to, you know, encourage people to sign the petitions and such. So yeah, that was really it was great to see them doing that. I was kind of I didn't realize my video would reach them, but yeah, they're great. They've been doing great stuff.
So I think we do have, I believe the digital marketing manager for Yanko Design is now on this call. Karina, I think that's you. I'm not sure. It would be amazing for you to share your thoughts on, as the organization that hosted this, you know, teachings. They, you know, you reposted this, and then you went in there and you kind of clap back. So if you are there, I think that's you, because we're chatting also on Instagram as okay, I'm not sure if you are hearing me or not.
Oh, hi, sorry. No, I'm not the person I think you're referring to. I'm just joined the call.
Sorry.
No worries. I'm just a student.
I'm having two conversations here with someone on Instagram from Yanko.
Hey, fake it till you make it. It's all good.
No worries.
Yeah, that's me. That's me. Yeah. Actually, I want to point this out. The owner of Yanko Design is this Japanese man named Takashi.
Mhm.
Takashi is someone who has been, I mean, just super supportive of everything that we like. Also for my career, since the beginning when I first, the very first crowd vibrator with them, and I know as of this morning, this woman, I put her name in the thing. She's the one who was moderating, and Takashi 100% supports her and the way that they're clapping back, because they're just like, we don't want that kind of stuff shit on our platform anyways. It's like cleaning house. So yeah, so I really deeply appreciate them.
While we're waiting here, I guess I want to mention like how great it is to have like receipts of like influential people who like actually care about this topic. I feel like in my personal life, I have like a few trolls of my own, and now I have like this beautiful video and those beautiful comments showing that like, no, there are big dogs in the game who don't tolerate this or don't want to tolerate this, which is really, really awesome.
And we also have receipts of the people who committed these crimes. Is that correct, T? That's right.
Hell to the yeah. I'm like, y'all are idiots. You know that. Actually, I made a comment kind of flippantly because this one guy, he was such a troll. I was just like, obviously you're not going to be hired by Ammunition now. And I posted that. And then Ammunition, the company, liked it. And I was like, oh, snap. Like, people are watching. And then some of them use excuses just like, Mrs. That's her. This is the Yanko lady. Hello. You see her, Mrs.
There she is.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that, Karina. But yeah, I believe we have, like I said, she's the digital marketing manager responsible for replying to these comments.
Hey guys.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, no worries. I just didn't know if you wanted to hear from me or from Takashi, but he's probably a little bit busy right now. I left him a message and I just hopped on till he can hop on in for me.
Of course, we would love to hear your reaction, and yeah, and glad that you decided to comment back on a lot of these very disgusting comments.
So I think my boss actually saw T's post because it was after hours for me, and he posted it from our Instagram. So it's actually the weekend, and I personally refrain from posting on the weekends. So it was a very one-off post that goes on the weekends. So I was not very active on it, and he just like pinged me and say, "Hey, can you check the comment section real quick?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What's up?" Quickly scanned through it, got in touch with T. And it was just, in the beginning, I was like, should I respond? Is it my place to? Because it's a strong issue, and technically it's a publication. You're supposed to be neutral. But as a woman, and also women of color, seeing men like that just like be so blatant in their disregard for a gender, for a community, that I'm not even a designer, but I, as an outsider, felt so bad about it. It was hard to like not speak up. So I was like, you know what? No, like there's a real person running this account. There's a real team of people running Yanko Design. So we can't just be neutral on things that we feel strongly about. And mind you, we're a majority women team. So this was sensitive. And I got a quick go ahead from my boss just to make sure that I can go all out and call these people out. And then I just went with it.
I think it's good to know that there's, people fighting the good fight, and there's people, behind, like, that you are willing to take a stance, because that is a difficult position to be in. But the fact that you guys did was really, really impressive. And I think a lot of us appreciate it. So yeah, big thanks to you guys.
No, it's all for you guys. Like, we don't want to be a platform that's just there to post beautiful renders or like hit a certain million number of followers. Like that's not the point. The thing that we're here is because we serve a community, and you don't speak up for people in that community, which I really hope one day is a 50-50%. They're never going to get up there. If no one calls out this bullshit, it's just going to continue. And when you have that power to influence people and speak up for those who are not heard, you just have to use it. I cannot be a person just looking at the algorithm or like letting comments slide because it's getting me engagement. Like, I'm a real person and I want the community to feel like there's a real person behind this.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming on here, because it was a Hail Mary to reach out to Yanko on Instagram and get a response. So there is real people behind this page. I really appreciate it. I also invited Robert Bruner and East Bihar, and they both saw my message, but I'm sure they're also busy surfing and doing other family stuff. But it's great to get someone. I think my first and foremost, I'm really happy that you are here with us, because I think with a lot of pages that do have a big engagement, a big following, you sometimes feel like it's hard to reach out to the people who are responsible for posting this stuff, and you want to reach out to them and talk about a lot of these very serious issues. So it's great to have someone, that there is a, like you said, a person behind this page, because sometimes it's just easier to ignore us small people.
Don't say that. I actually, believe it or not, I even read those comments that go like, I made $10,000 using this Bitcoin strategy. Join me. I am watching everything. So there's a close eye on what's happening. There are moments where I decide to step in and I decide to not step in. But like I mentioned earlier, this was just a very strong issue. So I wanted to get a quick nod from Takashi before I went in, because I can't take these things back. What I say on this platform stands, whether or not I'm still with it. So I wanted to make sure that he's okay with the stand I was taking.
I feel like I saw Hector's comment actually before you started like responding amazingly. I saw Hector's comment where he was kind of calling out Yanko Design, like, do something about this. And I was really skeptical, and I was just like, I don't know, what are they gonna do? And then when you just came through with a like fire response to every single post, like, yeah, just you had your guns out, you did not hold back. I just want to say, like, huge respect to Yanko, really, for that. Like, I so appreciated that, and it really, yeah, it really like restored my faith in your platform.
So me too. I actually saw Hector's comment when I went into the post. That was the first one. And I was going to reply to him before I got to anyone else, saying like, hey, I'm on it. And I was like, hold on, let me get on it and let him watch what I'm doing before I get back to him and be like, hey, did you see that? Because that would just be way cooler. And then I sent, like, after I did a bunch of them and I got in touch with T and she okayed them, then I just sent my boss an image of, Daenerys saying Dracarys. I was like, that's it. That's what my aim is for today.
I really appreciate that. I think as someone who runs a nonprofit organization, I expect other people to hold us accountable for things that we post online. I think we have a responsibility, and I'm really glad that you guys, took action. So I appreciate that.
And also I want to say thank you so much again. Just like what Mariah said, it really restored my faith in humanity a bit. Because so much of what has happened this year and what we've seen of this past administration and what's going on in the world, it's so disheartening. And just seeing people in places of power to fight back, and it really does so much. So I just want to say thank you very, very much.
You're so incredibly kind too. You're amazing. You started this. It's really all thanks to you that we were able to start a conversation on our platform. But you're the source. So keep doing you.
Thank you. I will.
And that being said, I'm gonna have to kind of close things out. Thank you everyone who joined on here to have this conversation. Thank you, T, for.
There's a cat. Oh, sorry. Kitty cat. There's a cat butt.
Yeah, well, thank you everyone that joined. Really appreciate it. And these are the conversations that should be happening. So I'm really happy.
Yeah, and also, can I just say one last thing, one last little thing? Anyone who commented, anyone who shared, I genuinely believe that what you're doing is activism. You may not think it, but just by speaking up, you are helping with this activism of supporting women and just moving our humanity in a better direction and being on the right side of history. So I just want to say that every little tiny action counts. So just remember that. Thank you. Thank you, Hector, so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having us, Hector.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.